In Skyrim, danger usually comes with warning. There are caves that reek of death, dungeons humming with enemies, crypts soaked in soul energy, places that tell you right away something is wrong. But Half Moon Mill doesn't. From a distance, it looks normal. A modest wooden mill on the banks of Lake Ilinalta, southeast of Falkreath, surrounded by trees, lit by moonlight, and home to two friendly residents, Hurt and Hearn. They offer you work, they sell firewood, make small talk. But stay longer than just a few minutes and something changes. The music doesn't shift, there's no jump scare, but the feeling does kind of settle in. Something's wrong here, and no one in Skyrim seems to care. Half Moon Mill sits isolated, far from major roads and trading posts. Unlike other mills in Skyrim, like Mixwater, there's no bustling family, no delivery routes, no economic link to a nearby hold, other than Falkreath and Riverwood, which they are suppliers of. But other than that, it's just Hurt and Hearn. No wagons, no guards, no traffic. The mill turns quietly. The wheel rotates through stagnant water. Piles of lumber wait beside a chopping block that never seems to be used. And if you stop and think for even a moment, the first mystery hits. Who is this mill even for, other than Riverwood and Falkreath? If you visit the mill at night, Hurt is often awake, and so is Hearn, for that matter. You'd think that's quite normal. They're millers, after all, hard workers. They'd be doing jobs day in and day out. But no matter what time you arrive, they're alert, eyes clear, unbothered by the cold or the hour. Ask them what they do and their answers are strangely flat. You only get 2 dialogue prompts, and they smile, say they work at the mill, say it's quiet, but they like it that way. Their tone never shifts, they never get any other dialogue responses. Their eyes never flinch, and if you're paying attention, you'll notice they never eat, never sleep, and never leave. They're just always there, waiting for something or someone to come. Hurt and Hearn are vampires, not suspected, not implied, but now confirmed. If you have the Dawnguard DLC, a radiant quest from the vampire hunters may send you to kill one of them. They aren't hiding in a ruin, they're just operating at the lumber mill on the shore of a quiet lake. And Skyrim lets them. They're not hostile, they don't attack unless provoked like any other Skyrim NPC. They don't even flinch when you walk in, armed and curious. They just say something along the lines of, "Do you need any help?" It's not that they're pretending, it's that they don't really need to. Half Moon Mill is their lair, and everyone nearby seems to accept that. Or they just don't really know what's going on. Hurt and Hearn are the only 2 occupants of this mill. No hired workers, no children, and not many visitors, as they both said themselves. Even Morthal, just up the road, doesn't acknowledge them. There are no quests linking Hurt or Hearn to the city, no rumours and no accusations. Falkreath hold guards don't even mention them, even though they're the suppliers of that hold. No one seems to ask where they got their food or why the mill keeps running when no one orders lumber. And that silence feels kind of deliberate. Like the world has quietly agreed, don't talk about the mill, because it's just easier that way. Half Moon Mill is nestled into the northern edge of Lake Ilinalta, one of the most lore-rich and eerie locations in the game, as I've already talked about in other videos. To its west lies the Ilinalta's Deep, a sunken fortress filled with necromancers and ruined halls. And with these things that happen at Ilinalta, it doesn't really just hide the ruins, does it? It hides memories, and the mill also feels like one of those memories, like something that's still functioning long after it should have been stopped. And when you go and look at the mill itself, you realise something. Nothing ever happens at the mill anyway. Inside Hurt and Hearn's home, everything does look quite normal, or as normal as a Skyrim NPC house would get. A fire burns, chairs are placed neatly around a table, there's food laid out. And when I say there's food laid out, there's food everywhere. But they never touch it. You can sleep in their bed, use their chopping block, talk to them like they're regular townsfolk. And yet nothing in the house feels used. It's like a stage set, built to look lived in. But there's no life here, only the performance of it. And I guess when you're both vampires, you don't really need a house, do you? You can just go out and probably kill some random traveller on the side of a road. So Skyrim fans have long speculated on Half Moon Mill's purpose. One theory is that it's a feeding trap. Hurt and Hearn may be using the mill to attract travellers like myself, especially low-level adventurers or traders, for feeding. Their friendliness lures you in, their remoteness ensures no one sees you go missing. Now, this is probably true, because once you go and look at the mill, there's a shed not too far from it. And in that shed, there are a bunch of bones and human flesh and beef everywhere mixed with blood. Now, I'm not the only one who probably thinks these are missing travellers that Hurt and Hearn have been feeding on. And I suppose Skyrim probably isn't going to tell us anytime soon. Another theory is they were allowed to stay. Some believe Falkreath's leadership is aware of them and tolerates them even though they're vampires. Maybe they provide services in exchange for secrecy. As in, if the Falkreath hold was to put an end to Hurt and Hearn, they would not be able to get any more lumber. And maybe they've agreed to only feed on outsiders. We really don't know. But as any Bethesda game and Elder Scrolls game, you can't go without a theory where it's just cut content. Some think Half Moon Mill was once part of a larger questline, perhaps related to the Dark Brotherhood or vampire factions, that was cut late in development. But the lack of answers is part of what makes the place feel so wrong. If you stand outside the house for long enough, you'll hear it. The creak of the mill wheel, it never stops. No matter the weather, no matter the time, no matter that there's no one collecting lumber, no carts and no deliveries. It turns over and over again, like it's grinding something you really can't see. And maybe that's the real question. Not what the mill is for, but what it's doing when no one's looking. Because I know not a lot of people go there, and that's been confirmed by Hurt and Hearn themselves. So what's really happening when it's just those two at the mill? You can kill Hurt and Hearn if you're sent on a Dawn Guard Radiant quest, or if you simply decide to test your suspicions. You can attack them. They'll fight back, they are pretty strong. Hurt in particular can surprise low-level players with her use of vampire drain spells. But if you win, nothing really happens. No one mentions it, no bounty is posted, no courier arrives, and no townsfolk react. The world goes on, and the mill just sits empty, or emptier than it was before. And after a few days, Hurt or Hearn is replaced by another random vampire, no story, and no explanation. Just kind of maintenance. Like someone somewhere needs the mill to be occupied, even though nothing is happening there. You leave the mill. You go back to the road, back to the story, back to the dragons and the quests and the prophecies all at once. And yet, something in you kind of lingers, or it did with me. You remember the house that didn't really feel real, the people who didn't blink, the wheel that never stopped running. You remember Hurt's voice, calm and detached even though she's hiding a crazy secret. You remember Hearn standing still in the doorway. And then you realise, in a world built to be explored, some places exist not to be conquered or looted, but to remind you that not everything is meant to be understood. And there's a lot of places in Skyrim that's like that, because some horrors don't really shout. Some just kind of sit there, smiling. That's what makes Half Moon Mill so inexplicably weird, the lack of shouting.